Alright, hello guys, and glad to have you on board again. Today, I've pulled up the camera for the altcoin review, because 2022 is going to be a hell of a complex year to navigate into the crypto sector. And actually, I wanted to make kind of a broad, big video forecasting for my 22-year plans. But actually, I finally got to the reality, and the reality is that I'm certainly not going to be able to make deeply enough reviews of all the asset classes in a single video without being absolutely 1.5 hours long, absolutely boring kind of video. So I will split these things into separate studies. I will make one for commodities. I will make one for stock indices reviews. I've already made one for Bitcoin. I've already made one for yield curves and what I expect for the Fed to be doing this year. This one will be about my altcoin strategy. Once again, no risk disclaimer. You don't copy me. You take inspiration from what I do at best, or just be entertained. Okay, so here's what this is all about. As always, any trading plan starts with an idea, and definitely in here I could be absolutely wrong. So don't mind me if I just absolutely misplaced. But my plan for altcoins in 2022 is that, first of all, we're going to have a look at the context, the real background context we're facing, and the high likelihood and probability of these things to happen more than these ones. What are my few provisions for 2022, kind of my crystal ball? What do I have in store for you guys? I'll share this knowledge, and of course, we're going to mostly have a look at charts. So let's get it started. All right, in terms of context, what matters the most to me is that this year, the sentiment index on the crypto fearing grid is definitely shifting. And we actually had a very reliable information a few days ago. Not to mention that I've already talked about that into the Bitcoin review. I have two different scenarios on Bitcoins, and that mostly depends on the sentiment that has already tried to give us some information and the technicals on the other end, which are actually being challenged right now as we speak. So I'm actually at the turning point whether I'm going to change my weekly plan, my daily plan to a weekly plan, which means 2022 being an absolutely boring kind of year for cryptos in general, and therefore what it's going to be doing for altcoins. Or is it still going to be a neutral bullish year with reduced volatility but impactful sentiments, which I still tend to believe is the likeliest outcome? And in that perspective, what would I do with altcoin if this one still turns out to be the one happening in the markets? Okay, so first of all, we need to shift into two general scenarios and two general opportunities. Though, in terms of technicals, we've talked about that into the daily chart, so we're closer to this, but the decision still hasn't been made. So we'll stick with the initial plan, which is normally I should recover in terms of sentiment, and the fact that we've hit it 10, though retracing right back to a very low sentiment level compared to ones we've traded all summer long, meaning that back then we had made several occurrences of trading at 10 in terms of sentiment. This one is just either an anomaly, meaning we should never have gone there, and we're going to rapidly recover from this, which I still believe is the likeliest outcome. Option number two, we're going to settle ourselves out there and we're going to have to change the plan for 2022. So sentiment is one very important factor for 2022, but what I would like to talk about is the structure of it, because 2021 has been split into two things. The first was the exhaustion move that we've experienced earlier last year. It was absolutely gorgeous. Everyone was making money, way too easy, great. But still, in terms of valuation metrics from Glassnode and so on, we haven't reached the tipping top of this cycle. So, well, either this cycle is different and we found the top without no one even knowing it, or there is still plenty of room to come, but we're going to exploit this within the next few years before overheating once again and terminating a bull cycle with a bear consolidation. So we'll see all about that. But there's something that just shows out of it, that despite the exhaustion move that we had on the top, and then the absolutely disgusting kind of accumulation that we all experienced throughout the summer, it was very painful to trade, even for me. I mean, I do not feel emotions, but I was very pain traded back then, and I still remember it. So it definitely has been an impactful summer, though the fact that we're back there just tells us two things. Either it's going to be even worse, or, well, this is just the good old recovery thing in which we just remind you of what it was about, and then we go back to brighter stuff. So we'll see all about that, okay? On the fundamental side of it, remember that Bitcoin is programmed to go up. Ethereum as well now. The question is, what up with the altcoins? There are too many of them, and remember we're still going to talk about this K-shaped recovery. A lot of them are absolute crappy bullshit. They will die over the next 2 years, and there are very valuable future projects out there, and there are also kinds of projects that will sit in between and be diverted away over time. But in terms of sentiment, okay, Bitcoin sentiment, because definitely what's going to happen with Bitcoin is going to differ from what's going to happen in altcoins, but it's going to set the ground basis. Look at this. We've gone far way up regarding to what we've gone down. So the sentiment has been much more bullish. Okay, we've gone 95, as in the bear sentiment, we've just gone to 10. But we've gone severely here. And the fact is that when we recovered after the summer's drop, we failed to go very high. We didn't really go to extreme greed. We shifted, tried to go out there. And as long as we were into extreme greed territory, the market reversed. So the fact that we are back into oversold territory now, very extremely bearish sentiment, tells me one thing. I think that anyhow and anyway, there's going to be a very negative sentiment all year long. I think that we will very, very, very difficultly manage to handle greed this year. I think we're not going to see the extreme greed that we've seen back then. We might eventually get there, but we're not going to last very long. I think that the market will mostly be neutral bearish this year and it will be bullish. So what would that tell us about the price structure? Well, that tells me one thing. That tells me that if I still expect a bullish crypto market, meaning that the big names, okay, Bitcoin and ETH going all-time highs, even if they do it in a bullish range structure, okay, means that it tells me one thing about the structure of timings. I think that if we go for this, then we're going to go very violently to the upside, rapidly moving up, therefore the sentiment will follow as well. But as long as we'll reach extreme greed, expect that we can make 20k move on the Bitcoin in just a few weeks, and the sentiment therefore will go from oversold to overbought. But I think we're not going to last in the overbought territory, in the extreme greed. I think it's just going to be so quick that we'll rapidly deteriorate right back down and let the market oscillate across the consolidative level until we actually have the find and strength to boom, find another bullish move. If you followed what I've seen, what I've told you in the Bitcoin review, if we go for a bullish year, it's going to be 2 sets of waves to the upside. And they're very likely going to be quicker than I even anticipated, because they're actually even managed to maybe last just even less than a month. And then that means that if there is 2 upside waves, though the second one is probably going to be shorter than the first one, but still longer than the first one, expect it to be that way, okay? If it's really that fast, that means we could spend approximately 10 months consolidating, 2 months to rise, still with higher high points and higher low points, which means the prices will be bullish. But if we have to spend more than 80% of our time consolidating, the sentiment will really deteriorate this year. And this is what I mean. I think we're going to spend much more time consolidating the very impulsive move that we'll make, meaning that every time we pump, people get in because they FOMO trade, and then bam, this is already too late. We're going to consolidate for a quarter or a couple of quarters until we actually find the strength again to start for another bullish week. But it will be very, very violent. This is what I think about this year. We'll get to extreme greed, but we're not going to last there. This is my first sentiment. Okay, so now we'll see that, of course, because if we sustain into the net bearish, extremely bearish sentiment, and if we break to the weekly range, well, then in that perspective, altcoins will definitely bleed the fuck out this year. And that's a big risk. Though, now that we have the context, it is an appropriate time to start looking at the charts, because anyhow and anyway, the context gives us ideas, but we always trade what we see. Okay, in terms of what we see, certainly not 3-minute chart time frames. I just received an alert. So basically, the Bitcoin is trading the Bitcoin chart we studied the other day, so I'm not going to go right back to it, okay? There is still heavy levels of uncertainty out of these levels. Do we reach out the weekly chart time frame and the moving average? And in that perspective, we're going to go for this big range all year long. And we're just going to oscillate dumbly in between and let everyone buy or sell, but I will apply the dumb strategy until further notice on the daily charts. Option number 2, the weekly and monthly chart time frame will rapidly recover, which means we can attack to the downside, but the weekly closes will be bullish and the monthly closes as well. So I'm really paying attention to these and mostly the January candle close. If we close in here in January, then this is over. We're going to get to a very boring 22 year. In that perspective, altcoins will bleed the fuck out. And the good ones, remember that the overall strategy for altcoins is this K-shaped recovery, okay? meaning that most of the altcoins are here today. A few of them have already recovered and have already been in the K-shaped upside form. But if the market rejects and goes down, these guys who've gone up are going to suffer quite a lot. Talking about the atoms, for example, they are definitely trying to go all-time highs. If the market flushes it all out, they're going to suffer, they're going to bleed a lot, okay? Though the K-shaped recovery is this: if the whole market closes itself, which I certainly do not believe, but could still happen, well, there's going to be some losses in those who are still trying to trend, okay? So, for example, I don't know, all the Luna coin, all those who are like less than 30% off their all-time highs, okay? They're going to bleed bath out of this thing if, of course, the market closes itself for 2022. Otherwise, think about the K-shape, which means there's less than 20% of the coins that will go up this year, probably 80% of the coins that will have negative direction. Combine this with the sentiment we've just highlighted earlier. What does that give us? That tells us that 80% of the time, 80% of the coins will consolidate and they will likely break some supports. Then everyone goes up very quickly, okay? They recover, they look like they're bullish, but they're not. Boom, they're sold again. Either they're going to stay flat, okay, and do some kind of stupid impulses like that, or worse, some altcoins will even do this. We'll go very low, okay, recovery, but we go low and we break the support and so on, okay? The very shittiest outcomes will bleed the fuck out of their money, okay? All the bullish ones will have pretty much different structure, but kind of equivalent. That means they will consolidate a lot, get to impulse, bam, consolidate a lot and kind of creating like stair structures, overlaps, bang, okay? This is option number one for the least volatile altcoins. And those who will be very volatile will be like, bang, okay, I'll consolidate pretty flat, but I'll consolidate way, way longer. Even bearish attacks at the ends are possible. And then boom, impact again, and you got the drill, okay? So you understand this thing. This is going to be absolutely crucial because this is all about this K-shaped structure. Currently, some assets have shifted already into the upside side of the K, and until we reverse the Bitcoin trends to weekly range, they will likely be the winners for this cycle. So bet on the winners, let go with the losers. This is what it's going to be about. But most importantly, we're going to look for the reaction of all those who are sitting in between, in troubled waters. Basically, all the Solanas, the Link, Binance, Monero, all of those who are really sitting in the middle of their weekly ranges and don't know where the fuck to go. Because these will be the ones we need to pay a lot of attention into these perspectives. These are the ones that we're going to have to arbitrage or get the hell out to reinforce for the good ones. Or if they turn out to be the good ones, reinforcing them further down the road. It's really all about that, and this is going to be my plan for 2022, okay? Though we need an idea. Like I said, you might be disagreeing with me, but my idea has always been the fact that I think 2022, or at least the next bullish cycle to come, eventually it won't come in 2022 for some reasons, but it's still going to come anyway. Cryptos are in an adoption phase, and adoption phase, just like the internet phase, will follow probably the same overall cycles, meaning that we've already had the tech release, which means now that the networks are maturing, that we have the leaders, and that we increase the technology and that we get it better. We're going to get the technological growth, which means we're going to get more and more efficient at creating blockchains, and they're going to be able to process more transactions. Basically, the tech will advance, which will allow new stuff and which will allow more creativity and so on. But until then, there is one very big thing that will happen. This is the private sector takeover. Private sector will take over with the tech, and they will appropriate this to do whatever the fuck they want. That depends which sector they are. But I think one big thing for 2022 is DAO, decentralized autonomous organizations, like, I don't know, all of the NGOs and all of these things that are today constitute of supposedly decentralized organizations will definitely find their way into cryptos because they have always meant to be. I'm talking about of the green pieces and whatever. They will definitely get their blockchains. I have no doubt about that. And there are so many other things that we'll do as well. So this is what we expect. These NGOs, all of the private sectors, private companies that will probably either decide to deploy smart contracts to handle their monetary in and outputs, or eventually, even for the most aggressive ones of them, constitute their own sovereign blockchain to realize their own transactions and so on. So there will be, I think, this thing to come in 2022. The regulations are there to start allowing some companies to dive into these sectors. They were totally like blown off with the explosion of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we're just basically looking at it saying, what the fuck can we do about it? There is no regulatory framework, therefore we can't do anything without risking to go illegal. So of course, these things will start to clarify in 2022, that's my prediction, and therefore they will definitely inflow like a lot, because as the floodgates will be open, there will be too much demand for this to handle. So I expect hell a lot of congestion in terms of private blockchain development or smart contract deployment. So first things first, Ethereum gonna take a shitload of demand still. Why? Because of course the most and the biggest companies in this world, which have tremendous cash piles or even bigger treasuries and stuff like that, these guys can afford cheap, expensive guys. They don't give a fuck. What they want with ETH is the security, the unbreakable security. ETH is not killable because ETH has the confidence of smart investors and they can afford the gas fees. They don't nearly give a fuck. If you want to transfer $1 million to someone, what is it to pay $100? It's far more efficient than the current traditional system. So big companies, they will use ETH no matter the price. Of course, the tiniest companies will likely use derivative options like layer 2s, and it turned out to be that there is definitely one that is leading this market, which is Matic. So I expect even more demand for Matic coming from tinier companies that will very likely will deploy smart contracts. But what matters to me, where I think the most value accrual options will be, is for the companies to create their own sovereign blockchains. They will basically deploy their blockchains to create down the road their own smart contracts and so on. And this whole perspective of the financial sector deploying itself around this economy, this new economy of company either building their blockchains or deploying their smart contracts, and therefore the tokenized economy, in which in that perspective we're definitely going to be hell a lot in the need for someone to handle all of it. And I've always made it clear, Solana is not an ETH killer. They definitely do not eat the same type of food. In my opinion, the absolutely tremendous transaction throughput of Solana associated with the timestamp, which is the way which is the tech that got me into Solana into the first place. When I saw this thing, I knew I had to buy Sol, but not necessarily for the momentum and the growth and so on. Because I think just one thing about Sol, it's going to be where the market is going to be tomorrow. I think the market for this tokenized economy is going to be Solana, for the reasons that we always look for, or I personally always look at hybridization of the world that we live today to get into the world that will live tomorrow. It's certainly not going to be a different world in which everyone is going to be magically happy, whatever shit that is. No, we're going to get a similar hybrid version of what we have today. So I think the stock exchanges that we have today will be on Solana tomorrow. There very likely be horizontal scaling for Solana as well to eventually solve part of the security issues that the blockchain has. But I think 2022 will be the beginning of a horizontal scaling for Solana and the beginning of the brightest for it. So I don't think Solana is going to be a blockchain that's going to crash, even though currently it's definitely not in the brightest spot. Well, we'll see all about that. I think Sol will recover because that's doing one thing that no one else can do, time-stamping transactions. And don't get me wrong, the financial sector needs that because all of the front running and all of these things, this is the historical bullshit, not to mention high-frequency trading and all of these things. So transactional throughput and historical time-stamping is absolutely necessary for the historical stock market to merge into the crypto version. And I think Solana is going to be the blockchain for this. So anytime Solana goes too cheap, I'm going to buy that thing. Okay, so we've covered Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. Now let's cover the private sector adoption. And I've always pleaded for three assets in particular, being the ones that have been getting closer to the attention recently, by the name of AVAX and Polkadot, and recently Cosmos is surging closer to the top 10 now. So in that perspective, you need to understand that these are the challengers for these types of demand. So the fact that I've anticipated this a few months ago when I released the video about these things, I was definitely right, I think, because that's the hint that I wanted. The market is positioning ahead of it. Now we'll see if I was right or wrong, because it's still supposedly going on at that point. We need to see the demand actually coming over. The market is always anticipating. But the fact that we have in the top 10, or let's call it top 15, of course, stablecoins aside, that we find Cosmos, Avalanche, Polkadot, all of these are interoperable system for self-sovereign blockchains being built on. So in that perspective, well, I think there's definitely a thing. And if I'm wrong, all of these assets will be totally destroyed, okay? Like I said, if I end up being proven wrong, these will be the biggest losers. But if I'm right, this is where the money is going to go. So understand it that way. Just like every time, there is a market share that is going to be created, and we have three competitors. They're going to start in the same race beginning or whatever. They're probably going to have approximately the same valuations, which is what we don't see yet. Right now, Polkadot definitely has the first goal, $21 billion at the market cap. Avalanche is 17, and Cosmos is just crossed over 10. So I would say an average of all these three will be approximately at 16 to $17 billion. So I think they're pretty much going to narrow around these levels. So Polkadot is very likely going to stay where it is. I think Avalanche as well, but I think Polkadot is going to catch up until the race starts. And then we'll see where the demand goes. This is basically what it's going to be. In the end of that race, there's going to be one leader, one challenger, and one loser. And God knows which one will be. You may want to make your own gambles. You know, of course, which one I do. That depends. Either you can bet on all three and readjust as the time passes, or you make some calls, which means you put your balls on the tables. Okay, sorry about the rude words, but that's one way to put it, okay? Basically, you make a choice, but one very important thing, you're going to have to be able to readjust if you're wrong, because the worst ever thing to do is to make sure that you were right and never change your mind. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Change, okay? So, of course, that doesn't mean you change on a couple of weeks basis, okay? But understand it that way. Out of 2 to 3 months, if one is seriously going up where two others are going down, that means you need to buy the one that goes up, okay? They all have different approach for this demand. You've got the Polkadot version of it, which is maximizing value accrual for the DOT token, reason why it's currently the highest ones ranked. In that perspective, the blockchains lose a lot of their sovereignty because they have to use the DOT token to get into the ecosystem and to use it. But therefore, the DOT token is very valuable. Okay, one thing. The Avalanche is kind of a hybrid solution between the two. Avalanche is like, okay, we definitely want to value AVAX and leave you a bit of sovereignty if you want to, but we're certainly going to incentivize you to use our shared security model. And on the other hand, of course, there is a big problem for this. It's inflation on the token, because AVAX is a recent project, lacks of history, therefore the tech looks great, but it's not unbridgeable, and I expect Avalanche to experience some troubles in the next cycle, but it's still a very good project, okay? The thing is that there's been more than 30% inflation last year, meaning that 30% of the tokens were introduced last year, and there's still going to be 20% more this year, and these guys are early investors dumping on your on you, and they've been buying at pretty lower prices. So this is the problem for me for AVAX, reason why I do like the project. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like the token. It's way too inflationary. And those who profit from that inflation are those who will dump the shit on your head, or eventually do. Not the same thing for Cosmos, which has very high inflation as well, but the inflation is rewarded to those who stake the tokens. We've already talked about that. This is incentivized inflation. This is not bad inflation like AVAX. So in that perspective, Atom's inflation is just going to slow down the token's prices, but those who have the token and stake them will earn the tokens that get inflated, with a little bonus, of course, on top of that. But the thing is that Cosmos has much less value accrual. The big problem of Cosmos is this open world system in which it is basically, okay guys, we develop a shitload of things, but we never will force you to use it. And the problem is that, well, at some point there could just be no Atom token value in the end and still be a Cosmos ecosystem. So this is the big problem with Atom token. The risk for this to be a worthless token, it always has been the case, and every professional investor is always asking those questions to the Cosmos dev. How can you make sure this thing is not going to disappear? So this is where the risk is, Bo. In my opinion, this is what this picture looks like. You've got a very risky token with a very high chance to be the winner, but of course, if it's not, it's going to lose all of its value. The second one is AVAX, which is, well, kind of a hybrid approach. We're going to try taking both of the best case scenarios, and by playing that game, generally these are the failures. But that's my opinion. And Polkadot, which is, well, we're going to make a shitload of money, come to us and make some money as well. I don't know which one is going to take over. All I know is that one will be the leader, one will be the challenger, and one will be the loser. I don't know which one. Okay, so take your sides, take your camp. Do not build tribes. Remember that you do not win a battle by pulling out the others out. It's really not that thing, okay? So if you are a partisan of one thing rather than the other, make your own choices. Do not fuck up with others. That's all about it, okay? Then other stuff. Chainlink. No problems, I think, for this token, because if there ever is institutional demands and constitution of new blockchains or new smart contracts, that means more data going to be processed. And don't get me wrong, the companies, meaning the private sector, is all about information. Information is data today, so oh boy, we definitely gonna have a hell of a lot of demand for Chainlink. My big question is, how will be the market cap? Because to be honest, at $8 billion or 9 today, I think it's definitely undervalued. But my big question is, how high can this thing go? And I certainly do not know if it's going to be more or less valued than the Polkadots and Avalanche. So my only question is Chainlink going to be valued below these guys, the interoperable guys, or is it going to be taking over? Okay, same thing for Matic. I don't know if Matic will be positioned above these guys or below. I personally think below is an appropriate area. So I think the leaders in the interoperable system will challenge for a 5, 6, 7, or 8 spot. I definitely think Dogecoin has nothing to do here. I sincerely doubt Cardano will survive this cycle, but we'll see all about that. And then Chainlink is a big question mark. Is Chainlink going to settle itself as a 5th, or is it going to settle itself as a 10? I personally am open for both case scenarios, because I wouldn't be surprised to see Link being a 5th, and in that perspective we'll see the different range and price range that they have to reach out in terms of Ethereum prices to eventually reach out to this, because that will be the final argument in here, okay? No matter what happens in here, it's all going to be about arbitraging the market. Let me explain. So if I switch back to the charts, okay, understand it that way. No one knows where the market is going, and whoever pretends to is an asshole. So the thing is that it's all going to be about picking the growth where it is. Put yourself an ID altogether and follow it, as long as you're not proven wrong. If you're proven wrong, man, take your shit out and try to change and readjust to where the growth actually is. On the opposite hand, there's going to be a very rewarding strategy to pull out, aside from pure trending behavior on the market. Because the market, anyway, in both case scenario, the big range or the upside potential that is concentrated on a few values and a few altcoins, well, arbitraging is going to be all about it. The K-shape is going to do just that. The professional traders, they're going to do just that. They're going to increase the disparity and discrepancies inside the assets and asset classes. They're going to buy one thing to sell another. And they're going to increase the K-shaped directions. Though in that perspective, this is the strategy to perform in 2022. By far, this is the one that is unconditional. This is the one that every professional is going to perform, and you better want to understand that. Problem is, it's not for beginners. Arbitraging the market is not going to be easy. So I've made a quick tutorial the other day by showing you how I do it personally by using ratios, and I gave you my ratio and reference ratios, the area in which we're trading between 3 to 5% of an asset, meaning that you are a legitimate challenger, or you are legitimate, you are an existing competitor, going into the 10 to 15% of the other one, meaning that you are a legitimate challenger, and then 30 to 50%, meaning you're willing to take over and you're going to try doing it. Okay, so take those ratios and now understand where the wars are going to be. Okay, so the wars are going to be, I think, BNB as the status of a number 3, where Solana is number 4, okay? And they're definitely going to battle each other for the 3rd and 4th place. Cardano, well, good luck to stay there, because I certainly do not want your token. Eventually, I'll change my mind. Terra, don't know what the fuck it's doing there. It's very overvalued, and it's pegged to the dollar price and dollar demand. So this will be a good token if we go for the range, but this will be an absolute crappy token if we're going for growth, because everyone's going to get out of USD or whatever to buy something else. So this is clearly linked to the demand, and when you yield 20% on a stablecoin token, well, I don't like the yield. Way too dangerous for Luna. So either that's a Ponzi scheme, or we're going to figure out some problems when there will be withdrawal effects. So I'm very cautious with Terra. I'm not calling it a scam, but I think there are some troublesome valuations and yields. So I'm certainly not going to get into this. I totally missed this token. And now that the trend has left the station, I'm certainly not going to go in front of the rails. I'm just going to let it park at the next station. Okay, though Polkadot, Avalanche, Cosmos are going to fight for this area. Dogecoin, God knows. Okay, Polygon, very interesting. So to understand these things, okay, there's going to be a fight between BNB and Solana. So there's going to be arbitrage to make between the two. There's going to be ETH BNB. There's going to be Terra with Cosmos, for example, is going to be an interesting battle to make. There's going to be Matic ETH. Okay, there's going to be a Chainlink Ethereum as an interesting battle and arbitrage to perform. The Uniswap tokens and DeFi tokens are going to be interesting to risk manage as well in between them. So arbitraging, for example, Uniswap versus Aave, or Uniswap versus other things, they could definitely be an interesting arbitrage to make. But sticking with the big names, okay, there's definitely big arbitrage to watch for between Cosmos, Avalanche, and Polkadot. This will be the leaders if I'm right. And this is where there's going to be the much more money flowing in and the biggest arbitrages as well. So this is the story, guys. I hope that now you understand what the plan is, okay? It's to try finding growth if there's such a thing. I'm going to try finding it, but not with unlimited risk taking. If I have to switch to my weekly plan, I will do it accordingly. This is not a game in which you trade according to your plans. This is a game in which you adapt to whatever the market will deliver. If the market is on the verge to deliver growth in 2022, have an idea on where this growth is going to be, have an idea on who's going to participate and gather this value accrual. Looking at what the market did recently, there's definitely something about what I've highlighted a month ago. It definitely looks like interoperability is the next thing to come. We'll see if I was right or wrong. If I was wrong, they're going to lose a shitload of money. Otherwise, well, this is where the money will go. So this is where we're going to go higher high and higher low points. The rest of the market may consolidate or stay neutral, but sooner or later, the arbitrageurs will come to push the K-shape to be broader and broader, meaning that sooner or later, assets will have to go one way or the other because arbitrageurs will pull them that way. All right, more than enough. Let's go to conclusion. All right, we got it all. So two strategy, growth strategy, very risky. Of course, you know me, I'm a big risk taker. So I have definitely a strong exposition to the one I've chosen, which is Atom. Could be right, could be wrong. Anyway, the prices at which I got in means I cannot make any losses. But still, I have taken heavy amounts of risk back then to anticipate this demand. And well, we'll see. So Atom team, AVAX team, Polkadot team, we're all going to be friends in the end, okay? Of course, there will be just one winner, one challenger, and a loser, but just make sure you're not holding to the loser. If it ends up being your coin, well, just readjust, okay, folks? No one is there to impose their reality to the market. The market is harshly imposing its reality to your accounts. Just make sure it's not going to fuck it all up, okay? Though, adjust if necessary. Look at the ratios in between all of those coins. This is the reality. So you can try hiding yourself between God knows how irrational stuff it is, the tech, whatever. Stop doing this. Look at the numbers. They don't lie. Okay. So that's one thing. The rest of it is all of the information that will be driven out of this potential private sector adoption, in which I think Link, bands, all of the oracles will be, bam, absolute bangers if there is really that thing coming along the way. I think the existing leaders, Bitcoin and ETH, will still be bullish, higher highs and higher low points without being too much bullish either. ETH will very likely overperform Bitcoin anyway. And Solana is going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to triple, but I think looking at the current valuation, I mean, I was looking at it when we were recording, Sol was pricing $117, just, gosh, all-time highs is just going 2 times. And I definitely think Solana will make an all-time high during this cycle. Big question around Cardano. Maybe I just got out of a winner, but I think I just got out of a loser, and that was a good choice. We'll see if it keeps losing track or recovering. Anyway, that was a good trade. Bought it in 2019, got out of it during this cycle, and I don't intend to go back in. I'll let you know if I change my mind. Dogecoin, the fuck is this thing? I still don't understand. When the Fed will rate hike, probably all of these shit coins will disappear. Until then, they still exist. So price is king. So if you are Dogecoin army leader, no offense, folks, but I'm certainly not jumping into this boat. Then comes the fight, Polkadot, AVAX things. So arbitrage these guys if you're smart, and if you want to play the trend, meaning investing capital into these, all of these things, okay? So pay all attention and don't hold to the loser if you end up being in the wrong bot, if you bet on just one guy. Take the money out and spread it to some others, okay? Then I think all of the alternate layer ones, phantoms, whatever, I'm not going to gamble on these. They're certainly not going to be there. Most of the demand will be between ETH layer 2s, and the self-sovereign blockchains. I think this is where the demand is going to be if we go for enterprise demand. Well, I think we got it all right. I think DeFi is going to be one thing as well, but I would hardly be very, very trendy for this. I've bought IFI or YFI, I don't know how to call this one, Yearn Finance, but it could be Aave, could be whatever. And I'm mostly going to arbitrage between these things rather than going full trend on one of these guys. So my full exposition right now is heavy on Cosmos, and if I'm wrong, I'm going to take a fucking hard hit, but that's the reality. I'm taking risk. I'm a risk taker. I assume that. Second thing is Link, which I think is going to be a winner anyway. And it's pretty damn overvalued now. Of course, I still have a huge bag of ETH. I'm certainly not going to release my ETH below $3,000, folks. Think about it. Prices lie, okay? Price is what the exchanges tell you. The value is which price are you willing to release these things. If you didn't buy with credit, they're all yours. And you'll sell them when you're ready to. I'm not selling any ETH at $3,000. Okay, that being said, think arbitrage, don't be dumb. And try to have an idea for this cycle. It's going to be much better than those who will just, I don't know, rotate each and every couple of weeks. It's going to be a very impactful sentiment circle. And most of the time, I think we're going to spend it with negative pricing and negative cycle, which means the pumps will be very quick. So don't buy something that is pumping. You're probably buying the market up. And don't suffer for the huge and long and painful consolidation. It's going to be very, very dangerous. But as long as your project maintains high lows and high points, be smart. They are the good ones. See you guys.